In a world where there are heroes wielding swords and magic, a massive war broke out. It was because the Demon Queen started launching an all-out war against all the races. With the Demon Queen's mighty power, her army easily overcame the other races like a knife through butter. The empires of different races crumbled one by one. Soon, only humans remained strong in their fight. A massive army of monsters and demons loyal to the Demon Queen, roaring loudly. However, due to internal conflicts and rebellions among the humans, their empire crumbled, weakening their defenses. The demon army was in a fierce battle with the humans, and they were clearly overpowering the human forces. The demon, in a swift turn of events, Demon Queen Elizabeth earned the title of the most powerful demon queen in history and solidified her position as the sole ruler of the world. Despite their complete domination of the humans and the capture of their empire, all the human soldiers lay defeated. Barrow Smith, a human priest, stood confidently before the demon army. He warned Elizabeth not to believe she had truly won, as in the future, their hero would surely defeat her, just as the legends foretold. A person rushed toward Barrow and kicked him. It was the prince of the human race, now turned into a demon. He smiled and addressed Barrow as Teacher Barrow, telling him to understand that Demon Queen Elizabeth wasn't seeking his opinion, she was giving an order. Barrow, lying on the ground, retorted, calling the prince a patricide, a traitor who welcomed the enemy, and a disgrace to the human race. He added that he had tried to cultivate the prince as the prophesied hero, but it had all been in vain. The prince suddenly transformed his hands into monstrous, muscular appendages with sharp nails. He scoffed at Barrow's words, accusing him of missing his useless father too much. With a wicked smile, he suggested that Barrow should join his father in the afterlife. Suddenly, the atmosphere grew tense and the surroundings darkened. A sense of wariness filled the air as a figure materialized in the sky. The mysterious figure commanded the prince to halt his attack. The prince, while striking Barrow, abruptly stopped his hand just inches away from its intended target. The person in the sky was Demon Queen Elizabeth. The prince kneeled before her. She asked what Barrow had mentioned about a hero standing with them in the future and the possibility of her losing. Barrow gazed up at her as she descended slowly. She was a woman with red hair, horns, and black wings. She called him a lowly human and demanded that he explain himself immediately, warning that he'd better do so or face dire consequences. Her anger grew, and she threatened that she had countless methods to make him suffer a fate worse than death. Trembling with fear, Barrow screamed out an explanation. He said that the prophecy foretold that when the prophesied hero pulled out the holy sword, it would mark the day when the rule of the demon race would come to an end. The holy sword was embedded in the stone platform in the main hall. Barrow vowed never to reveal its location and never to betray humans. Queen Elizabeth glanced at the sword, which was named Alpha. She approached it and inquired about the legends, asking if the hero who pulled out the sword gained the right to challenge the queen. She touched the sword and then stepped away, finding it intriguing. There was a certain charm in her eyes as she stated that she would eagerly await the hero's arrival. Time passed, and it had been a year since Elizabeth's reign began. Her army remained strong. In the second year of her rule, the demons started to appear more organized with their armors. By the 5th and 6th years, there were fewer and fewer guards in the army. And now, it was already the 15th year of Queen Elizabeth's reign. The town and castle were well managed under her rule. Under the absolute rule of the Demon Queen, all the past practices and inequalities among the races were abolished. Everyone lived on equal terms, without disputes, in peace and harmony. They all developed together, and soon, the hero's continent began to thrive and flourish. People talked to each other about food and ingredients, and even a monster was in a hurry not to miss his audition for the lead male role. Furthermore, because they feared the rare peace might be disrupted, an anti-hero alliance arose, firmly opposing the arrival of the prophesied hero. Inside the castle of the Demon Empire, which had once been the Human Empire, the Demon Queen sat upon her throne, with all her ministers standing in a row before her. The sword remained in the middle of the hall, a powerful symbol of the events to come. She inquired with her ministers if there was any news about the prophesied hero. The chancellor of the elf race, Twillia, reported that the elves had already mobilized all the tree insects to search, but they had not been able to find a single piece of information about the prophesied hero. The chancellor of the dwarf race, Heimerdinger, admitted that dwarves weren't adept at gathering information. However, he reported that based on information gathered from various weapon stores, there had been no signs of anyone suspicious. The chancellor of the human race, Aristotle, expressed his belief that even if the prophesied hero did appear, his resistance would be futile and there was no need to worry about him at all. The chancellor of the demon race, Jim, whispered to Aristotle that he might not be aware since he had just joined, but Her Majesty wasn't afraid of the prophesied hero. In fact, she wanted him to come. She aimed to respond to the prophecy by gathering various ancient books on magic and war tactics for extensive research. The Chancellor of the Beast Man race, Mogul, whispered to the others that if Her Majesty willed it, she could obliterate Hero's continent in an instant. Twilia, clearly frustrated, remarked that it was all because of the foolish Barrow. She believed the prophecy was nothing but nonsense, and with Her Majesty ruling, they were in good fortune. She suggested that they could simply allow the prophesied hero to meet his fate and perish. Suddenly, a loud voice rang out, saying, "Reject the hero," accompanied by a sign. The chancellors were visibly annoyed as Barrow arrived. With a gesture, Barrow signaled to reject the hero and support the rule of Her Majesty, the Demon Queen, advocating against the hero's arrival. Barrow, once the High Priest of the human race and now the president of the Demon Queen fan club and the Anti-Prophesied Hero Association, was making his stance clear. However, Queen Elizabeth swiftly reacted, using her magic to seize Barrow and choke him. Approaching Barrow closely, Queen Elizabeth demanded an explanation regarding the whereabouts of the prophesied hero. Despite the magical constraint restricting his speech, Barrow managed to convey that prophecies didn't always have to be entirely accurate or true. He suggested that when the subject surpasses the expectations of the prophecy, much like herself, it can lead to different outcomes. The prince, who had been serving as an official for the Demon Queen, arrived and concurred with Barrow. He acknowledged that it was a grave offense to apply the foolish prophecy to Her Majesty. He reassured the Queen that she need not take offense in the slightest. He mentioned that he had recently made new discoveries, but was abruptly struck by her tale. Queen Elizabeth told him to leave, and the prince, with a swollen cheek, understood her command. After listening to all her generals, Queen Elizabeth grew furious and dismissed their words as nonsense. With a surge of magic, she flung Barrow, sending him crashing through a wall. Ominously, she referred to herself as a king and claimed that she had reached the pinnacle of power, holding dominion over the world. She eagerly awaited the arrival of the legendary hero to challenge her and become the stepping stone to his fame. As she walked towards the sword, she revealed that she had extensively studied all the ancient magic books of the hero's continent, and, after enduring countless hardships, had developed a doomsday magic in anticipation of the challenge. With anger in her eyes and frustration growing, Queen Elizabeth wondered where the hero could be, as he had not appeared. She grew tired of waiting and declared that since he wasn't coming to her, she would go to him. Her generals attempted to stop her, expressing shock at what she was thinking. Her anger flared, and she insisted on her plan. She attempted to pull the sword from the stone. Suddenly, the surroundings grew dark, and a storm with wind and thunder raged inside the place. All the generals used their magic shields to protect themselves. Barrow was left outside the shield. Twilia commented that the Demon Queen was indeed trying to pull out the holy sword. A brilliant light began to emit from the place, and finally, she succeeded in pulling the sword out of the stone. With the sword in her hand, she wondered aloud who had claimed that only the legendary hero could pull it from the stone. Suddenly, she had a vision of mountains and a house, leading her to believe that the hero was hiding there. Excited, she cast an abyss magic spell, and a magic circle appeared around her. She commanded it to initiate forced teleportation. The prince, concerned for her, asked her to allow him to continue serving under her, moving closer to her. However, she vanished, leaving behind only a few strands of her hair. Far away in a peaceful newbie village, a man went about his farming work, finding solace and tranquility in the simple act of tending to his crops. This unassuming farmer was none other than the legendary hero, known as Leping. In reality, Leping was just an ordinary office worker, leading a mundane life, without much interest in playing games or watching anime. His primary source of enjoyment came from watching his favorite short videos during his daily commute to work, whether on the train or bus. Leping's favorite videos were all about farming. They taught him various farming techniques, from correct fertilization to the different methods of starting a sour bamboo shoot pickle. He even learned the entire process of making luasiphon and the principles of animal husbandry. He couldn't help but feel envious, wishing he could live such a life. Suddenly, and seemingly out of nowhere, he found himself in a completely different place. Dragons soared in the sky, and lush green landscapes stretched as far as the eye could see. Guided by the newbie system, he began to learn the basic survival skills of this new world. It dawned on him that he knew very little about this different realm, but it didn't matter. Leping realized that this kind of pastoral life was exactly what he had always yearned for. He marveled at how much healthier his body felt compared to his days in the office. Suddenly, a status window appeared, notifying Leping that after completing the newbie training period, he had fulfilled the conditions to leave the newbie village and embark on his journey. Leping hesitated, wondering why he had to leave when he was enjoying the peaceful farm life. The window explained that leaving the newbie village would expose him to a diverse range of people in this world. He could learn various swords and magic skills from them to become the legendary hero destined to defeat the demon queen. It urged him to start his adventure. Leping stood firm in his resolve, stating that he had no desire to kill any demon queen and preferred to continue his peaceful farming life. However, the persistent message window popped up again, expressing its disagreement. It reiterated that his mission was to defeat the demon queen and commence his adventure. More notices began to rain down around him, pressuring him to take up the heroic quest. Leping couldn't help but wonder why the system was so insistent on him leaving the newbie village and embarking on an adventure. It seemed that, despite its constant urging, the system couldn't force him to do anything he didn't want to. Inside the newbie village, he found solace in the fact that there was a special barrier that provided complete safety. Within this barrier, time perception was different, offering more than 24 hours in a day. This unique aspect of the village allowed him to enjoy and excel in activities he loved, such as farming, hunting, forging, and meditation. He admitted to himself that he knew nothing about swords and magic, but for someone who had no desire to venture out on an adventure, these skills held no importance. Through the exchange points he earned from newbie tasks, he planned to slowly build his ideal pastoral home from scratch, content with the simple and fulfilling life he had chosen. One fateful day, the message window displayed an outburst of frustration. It expressed disbelief that Leping, in a world of swords and magic, spent each day tending to his farm, completely ignoring its suggestions. It questioned how he could ever be considered a legendary hero when all he did was play with newbie points and exchange them for maintenance tools. Leping's refusal to learn any sword skills or magic frustrated the message window further. It lamented that its various adventure assistance functions were entirely useless, harboring a strong dislike for him. In its bitterness, it even expressed hope that he would meet his end at the hands of the demon queen. With that final outburst, the message window crashed and disappeared, leaving Leping to his peaceful, farming life, free from its constant nagging and interruptions. He had just finished his work on the farm and felt hunger gnawing at him. He noticed that the firewood supply was running low, so he decided to prepare it first. It was then that he remembered he had forgotten to bring the axe, Da Zhuang, back from the woods where he had gone in the morning to chop wood. Suddenly, the sky above him darkened, and thunder rumbled ominously. Leping looked up in surprise, wondering why it was raining at this moment. To his amazement, a magic circle appeared, and from it emerged the demon queen, Elizabeth herself. She proclaimed that she had finally found the legendary hero, and her eyes locked onto him. However, much to her shock, instead of facing her as a hero should, he panicked. He turned and fled from her, worrying that it was going to rain heavily and his clothes and dried fish would get wet. He appeared to be more concerned about his belongings than the fact that he was being confronted by the demon queen. After that, Leping hurriedly grabbed his drying fish and clothes from the hanger, relieved that he had saved his food from the rain. As he sighed in relief, his electronic pet dog, Wang Kai, began to bark incessantly. Leping scolded Wang Kai, telling him to stop barking and urging him to hurry inside. However, Wang Kai continued to bark, prompting Leping to wonder what had caught the dog's attention. To his surprise, he noticed a figure in the sky and asked Wang Kai if he saw it too. The demon queen, Elizabeth, spoke, admonishing Leping for being so dull and daring to address her as something. Leping quickly apologized for his mistake, acknowledging that he hadn't seen clearly. He found it puzzling that someone had suddenly appeared, considering the newbie village was supposed to be completely safe. The demon queen, infuriated and preparing to attack, sought to verify Leping's identity. She hurled a powerful magic attack toward him, leaving him bewildered. In a panic, he closed his eyes and raised his hands, attempting to shield himself. To her astonishment, the holy sword Alpha flew toward him and into his hands, forming a protective barrier that shielded him from the attack. Leping stared at the sword in shock, holding it heroically but also panicking about what had just flown into his hands. In confusion, he questioned what was happening, unable to comprehend how he had come into possession of the holy sword Alpha. The demon queen, equally frustrated and puzzled, wondered if the sword's magic sensing ability was so low that even ordinary soldiers surpassed it, or if it was concealing its true power. Elizabeth, the self-proclaimed strongest demon queen in history, readied her formidable attack spells and declared her intent to obliterate Leping. Hearing her words, Leping grew increasingly worried, wondering why she was here when he hadn't left his farm. His faithful companion, Wang Kai, stood his ground and barked at the demon queen. Leping scolded the dog, telling him to be quiet and not provoke her. However, it was too late. Elizabeth had already prepared 3 massive abyss magic spell circles in the sky and cast an extension spell. Leping watched in dread as enormous boulders emerged from the spell circle. He remembered the system's words about the inevitable meeting between the hero and the demon queen, even if he had never left the newbie village. Leping realized that there was nothing more to be said or done. He turned around, threw his sword to the ground, and began walking toward his house, trembling with fear. He understood that, up until now, he had been a newbie, but the final boss had come knocking, and there was little he could do to change his fate. As he reached the door, he turned back and offered a resigned smile. He thought, perhaps, he should be content, for he had no regrets. He cherished the happy times he had spent here, and in the end, he was ready to return to zero with this humble home. He entered the house and closed the door behind him. Frustrated and confused, the demon queen wondered what the man meant by smiling at her. She imagined that he might be challenging her to come to him with all she had. Her anger flared, and she called him an unbelievably arrogant bastard. With renewed determination, she prepared for another assault, ready to unleash her full power once more. Wang Kai, Leping's loyal companion, became alarmed as the boulders from the demon queen's attack neared them. Quickly, it started calculating and assessing the situation. With its calculations complete, Wang Kai transformed into its battle mode, unleashing all its guns and rockets. With precision and determination, it launched an attack on the incoming boulders, trying to protect its master and their home from impending danger. After successfully deflecting the demon queen's attack and saving their home, Wang Kai barked at her. Elizabeth couldn't believe the audacity of the hero from the legends, only to discover that he was relying on an advanced magical tool with awakened sentience. Growing even more furious, she declared that everything before her was inferior. With a sense of finality, she cast an apocalyptic magic spell of large-scale attack called Earth Recasting. She expressed her disinterest in probing him further and wished to end the confrontation swiftly. Wang Kai, once again calculating the danger, prepared for a counterattack. It unleashed a powerful black energy beam from its mouth to counter the demon queen's assault. However, she dismissed Wang Kai's efforts as futile, advising it to disappear obediently along with the land. To her surprise, Wang Kai's attack grew larger and enveloped her attack entirely, forming a quantum mechanical black hole. The situation had taken an unexpected turn, leaving both sides in suspense about the outcome. After a resounding collision, the sky cleared, leaving the demon queen in shock as she saw her apocalyptic magic had been cracked. She couldn't understand what the hero had done inside the house. Inside the house, Leping had prepared himself for what he believed was his impending death. He lay in bed, waiting for the inevitable. However, when the demon queen approached Wang Kai, the dog continued to bark incessantly. Elizabeth looked at the persistent dog, torn between amusement and anger. She chuckled, finding the situation unexpectedly humorous, but her amusement quickly turned to anger. She admitted that, in the end, it was she who had underestimated the situation. With determination, she extended her features, her hand and wings growing larger. She warned them not to get too conceited, revealing that she had only used less than 30% of her power so far. With a surge of dark energy, she unleashed her demonic god form and declared to the impudent scoundrel that she would show him what real terror was. The battle was far from over. As the fierce battle raged on between the demon queen and Wang Kai, an hour passed. Leping, still on his bed, slept soundly. Upon waking up, he wondered if he was dead and sat up, yawning. He looked around and realized that he was still in his home. Getting out of bed, he walked towards the door, noticing that it was quite calm outside. Leping hesitated, considering whether the demon queen was waiting for him outside like a maniac. Slowly, he opened the door and peeked outside. To his surprise, he saw smoke enveloping the area. His heart sank as he spotted the demon queen holding Wang Kai in her hand, crushing the electronic pet dog until it was broken. Leping called out to Wang Kai, which alarms her. The demon queen threw the damaged dog aside and approached Leping with a furious expression. She sarcastically apologized, acknowledging that she had destroyed the magical tool that he was so proud of. In fear and trembling, Leping managed to muster the courage to speak. He told the demon queen that it was okay and asked if they could sit down and talk. Despite Leping's plea to talk, the demon queen remained resolute in her anger and declared that she would only agree to talk with him after killing him. Her fury was overwhelming, and she found it unbelievable that she had been pushed to her limits. She wondered if this was the foretold ending meant for her. However, as her anger reached its peak, she began to shake and tremble uncontrollably, ultimately falling to the ground. The intense emotions and the weight of her actions seemed to have taken a toll on her. Leping was shocked by the sudden change in the Demon Queen's condition. He approached her and gently picked her up, asking if she was okay. To his surprise, her horns and monster scales began to dissipate, along with her clothes. In his confusion and panic, Leping questioned what she was trying to do. Seeing her completely naked, he couldn't help but start to nosebleed, further adding to the chaos of the situation. It was already past 9 at night, and the Demon Queen found herself on a bed with her hands tied behind her back. As she woke up, she couldn't help but contemplate her situation. She believed that she had suffered a humiliating defeat and wondered why, instead of seizing the opportunity to kill her, the hero had chosen to imprison her. She questioned if it was a display of his power to the world. She attempted to gather her magic to free herself from the handcuffs, but her efforts proved fruitless. She recognized that the restraints were another legendary class artifact that she had never encountered before. This revelation left her wondering just how much hidden power the hero possessed. Curious and wary, she examined her surroundings in the room, taking note of the statues and images present. She realized that these strange objects were not simple decorations and concluded that the hero was much more cunning and formidable than she had initially imagined. In that moment, she acknowledged that she had underestimated him. Leping arrived in the room with food and noticed that the Demon Queen was awake. She was struggling to get out of the handcuffs, and in her defiance, she told him that if he wanted to kill her, he should just do it and not expect her to beg for mercy. Leping felt a sense of fear and agitated when faced with the Demon Queen's intimidating demeanor. However, he recognized that this was his only chance to survive and that he needed to seize it. Overcoming his fear, he cautiously asked if they could talk instead. Seeing him willing to engage in a conversation, the Demon Queen, sitting on the bed, stopped her struggles, creating an opportunity for talk. Leping explained that he had used the handcuffs as a precaution because he found her terrifying. He placed the food on the table and clarified that he saw her as a formidable adversary. The Demon Queen was puzzled by his words, not quite understanding his perspective. He repeated his belief that there must be a misunderstanding between them. He expressed his willingness to unlock the handcuffs so they could have a proper conversation. From her perception of him was colored by this cynical view, she viewed him as a potentially dangerous individual. She imagined him looking at her cynically and saying that from the beginning, there had been a misunderstanding. She pictured him suggesting that she was wrong in thinking she was formidable enough to challenge the hero. In her cynical interpretation, she thought he might be telling her that if she wanted to stay alive, she had to fulfill his demands. Hearing his words from her perspective, she asked if he was threatening the Demon Queen. Leping took the key and unlocked the handcuffs, keeping his promise to show that he had no ill intentions. He told the Demon Queen that now that the handcuffs were removed, they could talk. After getting off the handcuffs, in a moody fashion, she acknowledged that the current situation was very unfavorable for her. She emphasized that strong individuals knew when to bend and when to stretch, implying that she was choosing to endure the situation for the time being. However, she warned him that he would regret his arrogance later. Feeling fearful and intimidated, Leping turned around and suggested that she take some rest for now, trying to diffuse the tension in the room. Leping thought about the curiosity that others might have regarding why he didn't kill the Demon Queen when she was unconscious. In a world of swords and magic, it was quite normal for someone like her, the Demon Queen, to possess a resurrection skill. He felt tense when he considered that while killing chickens and fish for soup was one thing, he could never bring himself to kill a person, even if it was the Demon Queen. However, he reassured himself and decided that resolving the conflict between the hero and the Demon Queen didn't necessarily require killing and fighting. He believed that if he could show that he posed no threat to her and could become her friend, he could continue to live happily. This thought brought him great joy, and he started to laugh joyfully. Unfortunately, the Demon Queen misinterpreted his laughter, thinking that he was mocking her. The tension between them remained, despite Leping's genuine intentions for peace. He picked up the remains of the destroyed electronic dog, Wang Kai, and examined them closely. He remarked that Wang Kai had turned into quite a mess due to the recent events. Leping closely examined the remains of the electronic dog and the Demon Queen inquired about it, suggesting that it was his most powerful magic tool. Internally, he considered it a little creation he had made from boredom during his time here. However, he responded by saying that Wang Kai was a recent development of his. Hearing this, the Demon Queen appeared uncertain for a moment but quickly became enraged, believing that it was his moment of carelessness after untying the handcuffs. She could now secretly use abyss magic, including infinity magic, and that losing his most powerful magic tool was akin to losing his right arm. She got up, ready to attack. Leping, still focused on the electronic dog, remained oblivious to what was happening behind him. He calmly replied that it was okay because the memory card was still intact. The Demon Queen saw this as the perfect opportunity to eliminate the legendary hero and began casting a world-destroying magic spell. He, without any apparent worry, reached out to a cupboard, opened it, and revealed that it was full of electronic dogs. He had made extensive preparations here, so she didn't need to be concerned. This sudden revelation left her in confusion. He picked up one of the dogs, inserted the memory card, and turned it on, causing it to start barking once more. He explained that it was enjoyable to have a companion, but sometimes it could be naughty, so he usually activated only one at a time. From the Demon Queen's perspective, she saw him as cynical, laughing at her manically, and the electronic dog barking furiously. This surreal scene left her disbelieving as she sat on the bed. Suddenly, she caught a whiff of a delightful smell in the air and asked him what it was. He explained that he had seen her faint, so he had prepared some food to help warm her up. It was a regular meat porridge that looked delicious. The Demon Queen, in her transcendent state, initially insisted that she didn't need to eat, as it was something only the weak required. However, the aroma and appearance of the food had a compelling effect on her, and her stomach grumbled in response. Leping, recognizing an opportunity to potentially resolve the conflict through delicious food, assured her that all the ingredients were grown by him, completely natural. He asked her to have a taste. The Demon Queen agreed to try the food and took a forkful, dipping it into her mouth. She was immediately stunned by the taste of the food. Leping watched her with concern, wondering if the Demon Queen, with her status, would appreciate something as simple as the dishes from the newbie village. To his surprise and relief, she dipped the fork again and took another bite. After a short while, she finished the entire plate, clearly enjoying the meal. The Demon Queen was delightfully savoring the food, each bite bringing a burst of meat juice that felt like fireworks to her mouth. The flavor was natural and unadorned, and the food contained a high concentration of magical energy. As she continued eating, her mouth watered, and she found it difficult to talk clearly. She marveled at the fact that this world held such a delicacy, so delicious that even the Demon Queen herself couldn't resist swallowing the last bite. However, when she swallowed the final morsel, her eyes widened in shock, her heart skipped a beat, uncontrollably good, and she felt an intense spiciness. She trembled and asked Leping what he had added to the food. Leping, feeling tense, admitted that he had added a bit of chili to the food according to his own taste. He then asked the Demon Queen if she couldn't handle spicy food. Still feeling the effects of the spicy surprise, she thought to herself that her suspicions had been correct. There were no good intentions behind Leping's actions, and she believed that this evil hero had imprisoned her simply to use her for research experiments. After the Demon Queen felt uncomfortable with the earlier food, Leping thought that another dish might help reduce the spiciness, suggested that she try a century egg and lean pork congee. He explained that it could clear heat and reduce fire. Despite her suspicions about his intentions, she decided to reach for the bowl and scoop up a spoonful of it. As she tasted it, she was once again stunned by the incredible flavor. It felt as though she were soaring high in the sky or even in heaven. The contrast between the spicy dish and this soothing congee left her with a mix of sensations that were both uncomfortable and delightful. Tears welled up in her eyes as she felt an overwhelming sense of peace and comfort. In that moment, all the quests for world domination, the struggles between the Demon Queen and the hero, and the various disturbances in her life no longer concerned her. It was as if she were floating high in the clouds, free from all cares. She expressed her feelings, saying that she had let go of everything and was now living carefree. However, it was precisely because of this newfound freedom that she had discovered how truly insignificant she was. Yet, in this moment, something extraordinary happened. As she looked at herself, Elizabeth, the 3-star Demon Queen, realized that by consuming the food and experiencing 2 extreme flavors, her power had once again advanced. She was sparkling with newfound strength, brought into a new realm under the influence of these 2 stimuli. She looked at Leping and told him to stop pretending and asked what he really wanted. He shook his head and said that she should not misunderstand. All he wanted was to research how a Demon Queen and a hero could coexist. In her mind, she imagined him finally revealing his true intentions. She saw him as cynical and heard him say that in this world, she was the only one qualified to be the subject of his research as the hero. He suggested that she let him help her become stronger and then defeat him. From her perspective, it seemed that he was proposing a partnership to further their own goals, even though their intentions were still clouded in suspicion and uncertainty. He asked if it was okay with her, and he promised to continue making delicious food for her. She couldn't help but worry about his intentions. To her, it seemed that while a knight might be killed but not shamed, she was the demon queen, and she wondered what he was thinking. She imagined him in a cynical manner, suggesting that if she wanted to become stronger, he could help her, all while looking forward to the possibility of her defeating him. However, she sighed and decided to let it go, perhaps realizing that there was more to their interaction than meeting the eye. Leping grew concerned when she mentioned to forget it and wondered if she still intended to kill him. Then, she stepped up onto the bed to be in a higher position than him and told him to listen carefully. She agreed to his conditions but made it clear that it wasn't out of fear. She was doing it to pursue the pinnacle of her strength. In his thoughts, Leping couldn't understand why she would fear him, given that she was the demon queen and held immense power. He realized that she could do as she wished. However, her rage was apparent as she continued, stating that she wouldn't lower her head or be submissive while living there, and her dignity as the demon queen must never be violated. She warned that if it ever was, she would sacrifice everything to destroy him. Leping, with concern but a willingness to cooperate, told her he understood and suggested they try to get along. However, the demon queen, still somewhat angry, began bossing him around, instructing him to come over if he wanted to research, and demanding all the delicious food he could make. He acknowledged her demands. Outside the house, the sword he had used earlier was left resting. In the early morning, he started preparing firewood and chopping it with the sword. As he continued to chop wood, Leping couldn't help but think about the complicated situation. With the demon queen forcibly entering the newbie village and breaking its protective barrier, time in the village had started to synchronize with the outside world. However, the real problem wasn't the time synchronization but the fact that without the barrier's protection, the newbie village was now completely exposed in the wilderness. Moreover, the monsters that were appearing nearby didn't seem to be simple creatures. Leping finished cutting the wood and pondered the situation. He noticed that the monsters didn't dare to approach because of the demon queen's presence in the newbie village. This made him wonder if once the demon queen left, the monsters would become a threat. However, his thoughts were interrupted when the demon queen called him for lunch. He responded, expressing his concern, and assured her that he would be right there to prepare the meal. After preparing the meal for the demon queen, Leping realized that he might need to seek her protection from now on, considering the potential threat of monsters outside the newbie village. The queen is on the couch, watching TV. She's been lying around and snacking on some potato chips, which has made her gain some weight. She asks him to change the program because she's tired of the same show. He comes out of the kitchen with lunch and says the system had gone for some time now and he finished preparing the meal so they should eat. The queen attempts to rise from her couch but struggles due to her weight gain. She then uses magic to summon her demonic wings, which appear on her back. With her wings, she slowly flies from the couch to the dining table. She lands and, in anger, questions him about the chips. She accuses him of poisoning the chips he fed her, claiming that they made her feel lazier the more she ate. In her mind, she suspects he's using the guise of delicious food to paralyze her with a slow-acting poison and lead her to total depravity. He explains to her that the chips are high in calories, and eating too many can easily lead to fat accumulation, causing people to naturally gain weight. She looks at her own weight and appearance, then snaps her fingers to cast the deep-sea magic, negative attribute conversion spell. Magical energy surrounds her, and she transforms back into her beautiful, athletic figure. She informs him that all the fat that had accumulated in her body has been converted into magic power. He's amazed at the way magic can be used like this. She apologizes, teasing him about how whatever plans he might have had are now foiled. She asks if he's disappointed. He laughs it off and tells her to start eating. She looks at the food, finds it mouth-watering, and says that the lunch suits her taste perfectly. She promises not to hold back and starts gobbling down the food. He advises her to eat slowly and offers to make more if it's not enough. He realizes that he'll be living with the demon queen like this for a while. Hearing him, she thought he was making a fool out of her. She imagined that he thinks she's weak and wanted to fatten her up before he kills her. He gets up to get dessert for her, but she slams the table in anger, thinking it's enough. She wonders if he's really treating her like a pig. Over the past year, she has broken through more than 10 times, so she believes she should have the ability to challenge him now for a decisive battle. He opens the fridge and tells her that there's her favorite pudding. As soon as she sees it, she forgets everything and feels joyful about the pudding. She tells him happily to give the pudding to her. He thinks that fortunately for him, the demon queen isn't that difficult to deal with. Having the right food can calm her down. Somewhere, around 2 people, an old man and a young girl who appeared to be adventurers, were being chased by a group of masked figures. The masked figures attacked them, and one of them cast a magic spell called Spatial Tearing Nail Cage, which stopped them in their tracks. After that, the old man takes out a large sword to fight the masked figures. He addresses the young girl as Alif and instructs her to wait for him to hold the attackers back. He advises her to continue heading toward the town, where it should be safer. She cries and expresses her unwillingness to leave her father behind. The old man reassures her and says that he made a promise to her mother to protect her no matter what. The old man, fueled by rage, urges them to finish the battle quickly and use their strongest move. He begins swinging his sword, cutting some of the masked figures in half. However, one of the masked figures raises its hand, and suddenly the sliced pieces of the others fly towards it and combine. Alif, holding a magical arrow in her hand, declares that she won't leave her father behind. She casts a spell, firing a natural arrow that strikes the combined masked giant but seems to have no effect. The old man insists to Alif that she can't handle the Dark Guild's apostles and that he doesn't know how long he can hold them back, so she needs to hurry and go. As he's speaking, the masked apostle suddenly slams its hand into the ground and leaps toward the old man with incredible speed. It appears right in front of him and delivers a powerful punch, sending him flying into a rock. Alif, filled with concern for her injured father, tries to help him, but he insists that she shouldn't worry about him and needs to go quickly. As more and more masked apostles begin to combine into one, forming a giant monster, Alif realizes that she needs to make a difficult choice. She looks at the apostles and says that she will go back with them to spare her father. The apostles, now out of control and senses, launch an attack, but their punch misses, sparing Alif and her father from the blow. Alif and her father witness the destruction of the apostles as Lord Mammoth crushes them beneath its feet. Atop Lord Mammoth's back, there was a shrine. Inside it there was the old frog, known as the Immortal Frog, inquired about how they should handle the two humans, referring to someone as Big Brother and informing them that the danger had been eliminated. On top of the Immortal Frog's head, there was a small doghouse, and inside it was Wang Kai, the dog. Wang Kai told the frog not to harm the harmless humans and that he would take them back to his master for further handling. She wondered where this strange place was and where her dad was. Then, she remembered that her dad was seriously injured, and if he doesn't get treatment in time he might die. Thinking about it, she tells him to hang in there, gets off the bed, and runs towards the door. She opens the door and calls out for her father, but to her surprise, her dad was flexing his muscles outside. There were other people too. Outside, he was having a conversation with the people. It was Leping, Elizabeth, and Wang Kai. Leping addressed her dad as uncle and said that he must have spent a lot of time training to look like that. He replied that as a warrior, physical fitness is fundamental. Leping was excited and asked if this was the warrior profession of another world, finding it amazing. Wang Kai, seeing his master excited, started playfully circling and barking around him. The demon queen, Elizabeth, was annoyed with all of it. She kicked Wang Kai far, then walked toward him, telling him that no one told the dog to bring back the riffraff and insulted it by calling it a stupid dog. Leping is infatuated by the old man's muscular physique. He touches the old man's muscles and remarks how sturdy they are, which impresses the old man. In response, the old man decides that since Leping likes it so much, he won't hide it and starts flexing, tearing his clothes in the process, amazing Leping. Alif stands in shock and asks her dad what he's doing. An awkward silence falls upon everyone. Dad feels relieved that Alif is finally awake, thinking he was trying to impress their savior. Leping looks at her and is about to say something, but instantly Elizabeth comes between them and tells Alif that now that she's awake, she can leave. Tension builds between the two of them. Elizabeth warns Alif, who is still trying to make sense of what's going on, and she goes closer to Alif's body, stating that she arrived there first. Leping attempts to diffuse the tension by suggesting that it's rare to have guests, so they should let go of their differences and talk inside. They all enter the house, and Leping serves them some tea. Leping apologizes to them for not having anything fancy to offer in this rural place and serves them a simple barley tea that he made himself. Alif looks at the tea and seems to find it wonderful. She asks her dad if it's the miraculous potion he talked about, the one that heals immediately after drinking. Leping, getting flustered, mentions that it's too exaggerated to call it a miraculous potion. He had only given them some cold well water before. Elizabeth, sipping her juice, wonders if bringing these two weak humans back means Leping wants to conduct some kind of evil experiment, and thinks if she wasn't enough to satisfy him for that. The old man explains that although he was already unconscious at the time, he vaguely remembers Wang Kai carrying the two of them and bringing them to Leping. When Leping saw their injuries, he tried to treat them and gave them the water. The old man starts glowing after drinking it, which instantly cures him. The old man tells his daughter that if it weren't for Mr. Leping's help, he would have never seen her again. She looks at the tea and finds it precious, then asks if they can drink such a precious thing. Leping says that the adventurers speak so nicely and there's really no need to be polite. They thanked him and drank the tea. They are both shocked by the taste of the tea. They feel a mesmerizing and heavenly sensation, imagining themselves somewhere in a field, lying with tears in their eyes, looking up at the sky where birds are flying and magic is flowing. Suddenly, their power advanced. The old man went from a 3-star archmage to a 4-star archmage, and Alif went from a 1-star mage to a 1-star archmage. They are in awe of what has happened and say that after witnessing these extraordinary developments, nothing else seems to matter anymore. They sigh in relief and amazement. Leping wanted to pour them another cup of the drink. The old man, with tears in his eyes, expressed how Mr. Leping is a truly exceptional person, and they can't endure such torment. He tells Leping that what he has already done for them is more than sufficient. Leping thought that their response wasn't entirely satisfactory, and he wished he could offer them more drinks and snacks. However, Elizabeth had taken everything away, and he was concerned that taking them back might irritate the Demon Queen. With a sense of disappointment in his eyes, Leping reluctantly agreed to their request for their fulfillment. Leping apologized and explained that there was nothing to serve them. Elizabeth boasted that everything was hers. Leping then asked Uncle Bess how they got attacked. Uncle Bess replied that, as they could see, it was because of the elf bloodline in Alif's body. Alif further explained that her mother was a saintess of the elf race and gave birth to her after falling in love with her father. However, the elf race forbids intermarriage with other races. Leping asked if it was the elves who were trying to capture her. Elizabeth intervened in the conversation, stating that they were talking nonsense, as the ban on intermarriage between races had been abolished a long time ago after the Demon Queen unified the world. Uncle Bess sighed and explained that, long story short, after Alif's mother was forced to return to the elf Holy Land, he took Alif and went into hiding. Leping concluded that the elves may have found out about their existence, so they sent people to capture them. He thought it was like the story of Romeo and Juliet from another world. Uncle Bess explained that because of his wife's sacrifice and return to the elf tribe, they had decided to spare the two of them. However, the ones chasing them this time are the envoys of the Dark Guild from the Demon Realm. Leping, upon hearing the terms Demon Realm and Dark Guild, looked at Elizabeth with curiosity. Elizabeth, feeling defensive, was angered by Leping's questioning, as it seemed like an accusation. Leping quickly apologized for any misunderstanding. She then sat down and told them to explain clearly where the Dark Guild in the Demon Realm had come from and why they were capturing elves. Uncle Bess explained that the Dark Guild was rumored to be conducting mysterious human experiments with the goal of resurrecting the Demon Queen, Elizabeth, who had once unified the world. Alif further clarified that the elves were being used as materials for these experiments, making her a target even though she hadn't awakened her bloodline. Elizabeth, deep in thought and feeling teased by Leping, grabbed him and accused him of thinking ill of her. Leping assured her that he knew she had nothing to do with the Dark Guild's actions and tried to calm her down. The father and daughter looked at each other, confused by the interaction between Leping and Elizabeth. Elizabeth mentioned that there had been significant changes in the world in just 1 year and questioned who had informed them that the Demon Queen was already dead. Uncle Bess explained that the Demon Queen Elizabeth had been missing for 500 years, and if she were still alive, she would have returned to rule the world long ago. Leping was puzzled by this information, as he knew that Elizabeth had only been living there for a little over a year. Alif explained that according to the literature, the Demon Queen Elizabeth was killed by the legendary hero. It was said that the battle lasted for a whole month, and finally, the legendary hero sacrificed himself to protect the hero continent and died with the evil Demon Queen. Elizabeth's aura terrifies them as they find themselves in a nightmarish demonic realm. Alif trembles with fear and asks her father what this place is. Her father, clearly terrified, explains that it's the manifestation of pure killing intent. Elizabeth calms herself down and reassures them that the rumors are indeed false, and they both instantly agree. Leping also goes along with their statement, claiming that he is, in fact, the legendary hero, reflecting on what the system had told him. The revelation that Leping is the legendary hero and Elizabeth is the Demon Queen shocks the father and daughter, leaving them overwhelmed with information. Elizabeth feels annoyed by Leping's revelation, in her vision thinking that he's trying to make them mock her and laugh at her for being imprisoned by him, the legendary hero. She slams the table in frustration, then gets up and leaves, saying she won't entertain them anymore. Inside, she thinks that Leping saved these people just to humiliate her, and he has gone too far with that. She goes into the room and slams the door. They all exhale, but Uncle Bess trembles as he asks Leping about his plans for the future, thinking about him and his daughter. Leping himself, confused and terrified, answers that he does not know either, but first, let's calm down. He thought that it seemed that after Elizabeth broke the time barrier, time there became chaotic and out of sync until it completely synchronized. It had been 500 years outside. After that, they all went to sleep, with moonlight coming from the window brightening the room. Elif is sleeping on the bed, and her father is on the floor. She could shake off her fear and talk with him, saying that she didn't expect the truth of 500 years ago to be like this. The Demon Queen fell in love with the legendary hero and gave up the world, choosing to hide away, just like her father did. He tries to shush her and says that they have no right to compare themselves with them. He says that Leping had told them to calm down first, and he must be thinking about whether to spare them or not. He asks Elif not to talk nonsense. Elif asks why he saved them if he wanted to kill them in the first place. Her father replies to her just like how they casually helped them break through to the advanced stage with the sacred tea and almost strangled them. In their eyes, they are no different from ants. Whether to kill or spare them, it was all up to their mood. Suddenly, a footstep comes, and in a villainous voice, someone asks them what they were doing and why they are still not asleep as it was late. This terrifies them. The figure comes close to them, laughing. It was Leping. He smiles and asks if they haven't slept yet and invites them to play cards with him. They are shocked and concerned. They light a candle and sit in a circle. Leping explains the rules, which are quite simple. They were thinking something terrifying would happen, but Leping just wants to play a simple card game. Elif thought that, as her dad had said, it was a test from Mr. Leping for them to decide whether to kill them or not. Leping wants to start dealing the cards. Elif, still terrified, finds some courage and asks him what the name of the game is. She thought that a sinister aura was emanating from the cards. Leping thought for a while and realized that landlord might not be easy for people of this world to understand, so he gives the game a new name, calling it Dragon Fight. This name terrifies them. It also alarms Elizabeth, as Dragon Fight signifies a high-level magic concealment technique. Elizabeth uses her magic to look at them playing cards. Elizabeth wondered what Leping wanted. Leping tells them that the game is kind of like the two brave heroes, like them, must join forces to defeat the dragon. Furthermore, he explains that they can decide whether to be the hero or the dragon according to the cards they draw. The father agrees with the daughter, thinking it was their test. In their vision, they imagine Leping, looking sinister, saying that he would start dealing the cards now and warning them to think carefully before choosing their cards. Leping was happy to play cards with them. He tells them to look at his cards first and urges them to hurry up. The father, being serious, tells Elif that there is no room for hesitation now, and she takes her cards, to which she agrees and selects a card. Suddenly, the father and Elif both felt like they were in another realm. Elif felt her magical power draining just by picking up the card. She looks at her dad and asks for forgiveness, explaining that she couldn't complete the task. Her father consoles her and tells her to leave the rest to him. Leping asks them if they want to be the dragon, but they decline his offer. Leping thought that although there are not many big cards, it's still a very good set. He also has big and small kings, not a bad hand worth a shot. He considers that if he had another 4 and 2 aces, he would have a winning hand. He asks them once again if they were sure about it, and they confirm their decision. Then he says he won't be polite and draws a card. He shows the cards, the Queen of Diamonds, the 10 of Spades, and the 8 of Spades, which makes him sad. The Bess and Elif are tense as they see Leping's dissatisfaction and wonder if it's due to their performance. Leping plays first and throws an 8, then asks Uncle Bess to take his turn. Baruz, while playing, thinks that if they pass the test, Leping will spare them, so they can't give up. However, he realizes that every time they play a card, it comes at the cost of their life force. He calls it and then throws a jack. After that, Elif looks at her dad with concern, but Bess assures her he is fine and asks her to leave it to him. Elif decides to pass. Leping, deep in thought about the game, considers that besides the royal flush, a straight from 7 to queen, or 3-4 seconds with a pair of 5 seconds, only 10 and jack are left. He ponders whether he should break the ace pair or not. If he does, they could play ace 2, putting him at a disadvantage. After some time, he says he also passes, which shocks Baruz. Bess asks Leping if he really wants to pass, to which Leping replies that he does not want to pass. Bess suspects that Leping is deliberately making him continue to play cards, consuming his life force. In this situation, he thinks about getting rid of all the cards as soon as possible. Then he shows his cards, with a pair of queens and a 3, with a 6 and 7. Bess mentions that according to the rules, this combination of cards should be called a flying dragon. Bess suddenly felt pain in his legs, a sensation of strong currents, but he endures it. He realizes that the price for this is a leg. The bigger the cards he plays, the bigger the price he pays. They both see a dragon emerging from the cards, which terrifies them. The dragon launches an attack on Leping. Elizabeth watches all of this in wonder, while Bess realizes that playing a combination of cards has led to a losing situation. He feels doomed now, as he has offended the legendary hero, and it seems like it may lead to his death. Leping looks at Bess with concern and surprises him by saying that Bess played well. Leping says that he does not want it to end and tells Bess to continue with his cards. Bess obeys him, albeit with fear in his mind, and throws an ace and a 3. The lift passes. Leping then picks a 10, and they cannot beat that. Leping smiles maniacally and shows his cards, revealing a straight of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen. Showing his cards makes a large wave form, and Bess realizes it's the sky-destroying wave. It is so high that it engulfs them both. Bess tells the lift to hang tight, and they find themselves inside the water, feeling exhausted and saying that they can't play anymore. Leping shows his next hand, which is 3 of a kind with a pair, and again they feel something coming towards them. A chariot made up of magical wind approaches, and Bess looks at it with fear, thinking they can't beat it. However, Elif tells them to wait as she wants the cards and, with determination, picks up the card. Bess tells her not to do that, warning her about paying the price with her life force. But Elif says that she can't always hide behind him and wants to protect him as well. She shows her cards with 3 of a kind and a pair, forming her own magical chariot to tackle Leping's. The ferocious battle of cards continues as the magical chariots tackle each other. Bess asks Elif if she is okay, and with determination in her eyes, she says that she is fine. Leping says that one has to protect their teammates, even if they must break their own cards. The right thing, the most important thing, is determination. He is surprised that they have gotten the hang of playing cards so quickly. Bess looks at his fingers slowly fading and thinks about determination. Leping, with a stoic expression, implies that it's too late for them. They feel tense and scared. Elizabeth feels uneasy, with an ominous feeling. Leping takes out his cards and shows them, revealing a pair of jokers. The clown comes near them and gives them a finger heart. Suddenly, he notices Elizabeth, and he asks her what she was peeping at. He magically conjures a knife with a heart-shaped hilt and holds it at his throat, warning her to be careful, or he might just kill her. Elizabeth becomes angry and asks who he thinks he is, looking down on them. She mentions that the queen has lowered her dignity and accepted nourishment for this period, barely reaching the 3-star demon god stage, but Leping had casually summoned it. Looking at the massive powers at play, Bess feels vulnerable and asks Elif for forgiveness, feeling powerless. She tells him not to blame himself, as it was her fault for annoying Mr. Leping. Bess realizes that his life force is draining rapidly. He shows his cards and starts coughing. Leping sees that and asks Bess if he is fine, noticing that Baruz's injuries haven't healed yet. Leping also notices Baruz's cards with pairs of kings and a 3. He realizes that Uncle Bess could have won a long time ago but was just letting Leping play with him. Leping feels naive for thinking he was very good, but he had disturbed Baruz's rest. He puts down all his cards, ending all the spiritual magical events. Leping collects all the cards and keeps them inside. He mentions that it was so much fun to play with them and now he needs some rest. He hopelessly apologizes for troubling them. Seeing Leping unsatisfied, they become unsettled and scared. Bess remarks that the legendary hero is hard to figure out. Elif is thankful that they are still alive. Elizabeth, annoyed with all of it, finds it ridiculous. She believes that playing cards with these 2 people is just a ruse, and the real plan is to seize the opportunity to strike her, the queen. The next early morning, they are all outside the house. Bess and Elif are getting ready to leave. Leping asks them if they really don't want to stay for a few more days, mentioning that the fruit he planted is almost ripe. Bess bows his head and says that they can't bother the 2 anymore, expressing his gratitude for Leping's kindness and grace that they would never forget. Leping doesn't want Bess to make it sound so serious. Bess assures them that after they leave, they won't say anything indiscreetly. Elif, holding the parting gift from Leping, asks him if he wants to give such precious gifts to them. Leping laughs it off and says that it was just ordinary barley tea. He grabs Baruz's hand and says that there's this as a memento for him. Bess is shocked to see the cards. Leping wants him to take them as his card skills are too bad and he is not suitable for them at all. Elizabeth calls them, and Bess looks at her. She stands there stoically and tells them to hurry up and get out of there, to which they instantly agree and run off. Leping feels sad that they have left. Elizabeth starts walking inside, stating that now everything is back to normal. She orders Leping to go and make some food for her, to which he agrees. After parting ways with Leping and Elizabeth, Bess and Elif are running as fast as they can. Bess is carrying Elif, and she starts feeling sick from running too fast. She tells him to stop, as she can't go on anymore. He stops instantly. Bess reflects on how first it was the game of the legendary hero, then the threat of the Demon King. They imagine being threatened by the Demon Queen last night. With her magic, the Demon Queen places cursed marks on their necks. She commands them to leave the place the next day and forbids them from revealing any information about the Demon Queen and the legendary hero's presence here to the outside world. They agree to obey her command. She warns that if they have the slightest idea of going against the Queen's will, the curse marks on their necks will cause them to lose their heads immediately. Back in the present, Bess realizes that the truth of history is that the Demon Queen who ruled the world and the legendary hero Leping were tired of the worldly conflict and didn't want to be disturbed anymore. Elif tells him that the place looks familiar. Bess looks around and discovers that they had run quite a distance and are now back in a familiar location. Wang Kai the dog, looking at them, says that sending them back here should stop them from bothering the master and the fierce women anymore. But it was assisting Bess with his booster to run fast. They realize that they are at the same place where they were attacked. Elif says that the corpses of the Dark Guild apostles are still there. Bess tells her that there should be all kinds of high-level demons nearby, and they should leave as soon as possible. Wang Kai gets alert by something approaching but doesn't care about it. Instead, it decides it's better to go back and possibly get scolded by the fierce women. Wang Kai opens a portal and jumps into it. Suddenly, all the Dark Apostle corpses awaken. Among them, Bess recognizes one of them as the Great Apostle. Elif looks at him with terror. The Dark Guild Great Apostle has a power level of 2-star demon spirit. Not only him, but the other Dark Guild Apostles also have massive power levels ranging from 2-star demon spirit to 4-star demon spirit. It seems like you're providing a reference for magic strength levels and describing the character's strengths. Bess is a magician with a warrior level of 1-star Grand Mage. Elif is a magician with an archer profession and a level of 1-star Grand Mage. Elif mentions that the gap in strength is too significant and advises Bess to let her leave with them, urging him to run. Bess tells Elif that while the gap in strength is indeed significant, after seeing the realm of those two, these apostles are nothing. She remembers that her dad was called the iron-hearted Bess of the heroes. Bess takes out the deck of cards that Leping had given him, instantly destroying all the Dark Guild apostles. Bess tells Elif that since her mom went back to the elf tribe, he's been taking care of her and has become timid. He admits that he was wrong and that escaping can't solve the problem. He says that if they can get through this difficulty, he'll take her to the elf tribe and bring her mom back to reunite, just like he did when he went after her mom by himself. The deck produces 4 cards, and Bess casts the card Summoning. The Arrow God descends. Elif looks at the summoning and calls for her mom. Bess asks her to play their cards. The summoning shoots the arrows, destroying all the apostles one by one. The Great Apostle tries to stop the attack but cannot control the power and gets shot. The cards return to the deck, and Bess falls to his knees. Elif is concerned about him, and he tells her that her dad should change his profession. From then on, a new profession is born in the hero's continent, Card Master.
What lies ahead for them as they venture into this mystical world? What do you think will happen next? Don't forget to hit the like button, comment if you want to continue this series, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.